They believed we'd grovel, and that's the most ironic part of it all. The galactic, unconcordant, self-proclaimed enlightened beings of the cosmos descended upon Earth like deities, offering salvation. For decades they'd lurked in the shadows, scrutinizing our broadcasts, dissecting our conflicts, our political maneuvering, our frailties. Finally, they unveiled themselves a council of 10 species, each more alien and self-important than the last, literally and figuratively towering over us. They professed to bring peace, protection, guidance, yet they appeared only after the skies turned crimson. The year Earth fractured wasn't amidst war or environmental collapse. It was during a time of supposed peace. That's what truly shattered us. One seemingly ordinary morning, entire cities vanished. London, New Delhi, São Paulo reduced to mere outlines, seared into concrete. No warning, no declaration, just an eerie quiet, then obliteration. And then came their message. This was a lesson. Accept our guidance, or forfeit your world. The unconcordant denied responsibility, later claiming it was a rogue faction, the Jethal Dominion, a militaristic insectoid race that had acted without their sanction. We were instructed to forgive. The council's spokesman, a being named Ian, stood before Earth's shattered remnants, with eyes like pools of oil and a voice dripping with condescension. He declared, "Humanity must transcend vengeance. Retaliation is a primitive instinct. Forgiveness is the path of advanced civilizations." He uttered those words while children unearthed bodies from the rubble. Forgive. The word was a putrid taste in our mouths. We didn't weep. We didn't protest. What we did was far more profound. We unified. For the first time in our history, humans ceased their internal squabbles. Our leaders, generals, engineers, even ancient adversaries, convened in a single room. We had no capital city left, so we met on scorched earth. Our message was simple. They burned our cities, they erased our dead, and they called it a lesson. So, we would teach them one in return. The subsequent decade wasn't defined by speeches or negotiations. It belonged to clandestine laboratories, the profound silence of deep space, and vengeance meticulously etched into metal. We engineered vessels not just for flight, but for destruction. We reverse-engineered every scrap of technology from the debris they left behind. A new kind of Earth force emerged, fueled not by flags or ideologies, but by sheer fury. We didn't seek a place at their galactic table. We built our own, they observed, at first with smug satisfaction, then with bewilderment, then with abject terror, because we didn't come to converse. We didn't come seeking reparations or apologies. We came for war. When the first human dreadnought entered orbit around the Hethel homeworld, there were no warnings, no declarations, just silence. Then oblivion. Cities transformed into ash. Their military installations melted into slag, and in the wreckage, we left a solitary message, seared into their capital. This was a lesson. Forgiveness denied. The unconcordant plunged into chaos. Suddenly, the monsters they had once dispassionately studied through data screens were standing in their pristine gardens. The other races pleaded, dispatched envoys, offered treaties. We responded precisely as they had taught us. One by one, the council members fell. Their arrogance left them utterly unprepared for the depth of human hatred. We didn't just fight with weaponry. We delved into their psychology, their culture, their vulnerabilities. We fought like apex predators, not mere soldiers. And in the shadows of ruined palaces and burning star stations, a single phrase echoed among our enemies. Humans, remember. They say the galaxy is vast, but fear travels faster than light. The Shethel massacre was not an isolated incident. It was a thunderous warning. We knew it, they knew it, and the other members of the unconnected, once smug, overseers of lesser species, felt the icy tendrils of terror creeping up their spines. These were no longer humans pleading for survival. These were humans reminding the stars that we were not born for submission. We were not a problem to be fixed. We were a consequence. After Shethel Prime burned, the council went into a frenzy. Emergency meetings were convened across multiple sectors. The Larim, those diplomatic jellyfish who had once lectured us on the virtues of compassion through inaction, now groveled for peace. Their ambassador's voice trembled through the transmission. "We understand your pain, Earth. We stand with your grief." Grief had perished with London. What remained was something else, something sharper, something primal. Our response was as clinical as it was merciless. We traced the supply chains of the Chithel warships, the very ones that had shelled our cities. We discovered the Alarum manufactured their hulls. They feigned ignorance, claiming they were unaware of the ultimate use for their components. So, we educated them. Operation Hollow Rain commenced on the first eclipse of their water moon. 6 Earth dreadnoughts descended without a whisper. Lights, no communications, just unwavering silence and surgical precision. Their cities weren't bombed. They were meticulously drained. Entire islands were lifted by gravity weaponry and hurled into their own sun. What remained of their capital was reduced to a monument of ash. We left a message etched into their ocean floor. Sympathy is not innocence. One by one, the so-called peaceful species of the unconcordant began to vanish. Some fled into the depths of space. Others desperately sought protection from the very races they had once dominated. It's truly astonishing how quickly fear clarifies perspective. Back on Earth, there were no celebrations, no triumphant parades, no waving flags. Only singular purpose. Our government no longer even had a formal name. It wasn't a democracy or a dictatorship. It was a council of survivors, engineers, war strategists, scientists, AI architects, all toiling relentlessly around the clock. No one sought power. No one craved fame. We had one overriding objective: extinction-level retaliation. Yet it wasn't about genocide, not entirely. We didn't kill for the sake of bloodshed. We dismantled legacies. We shattered symbols. We meticulously erased their pride. Where they had once stood as deities over lesser worlds, we transformed them into cautionary tales. Their grand monuments became desolate graves. Their philosophies, riddled with hypocrisy, were painstakingly rewritten in the fires of consequence. The unconcordant was unraveling, and its members knew it. One of them, a species known as the Solari, winged beings revered for their mastery of sound and emotion, attempted what they believed would be a clever maneuver. They invited us to a peace summit, a trap, of course. The location was supposedly neutral space, a structure they called the Circle of Harmony, rumored to withstand supernova-grade destruction, within whose walls violence had supposedly never occurred. We accepted the invitation anyway. Admiral Trent led our delegation, a former street urchin from a shattered Earth slum, now the embodiment of humanity's vengeance. His presence at the summit was pure venom, encased in calm. The Solari commenced. Their ritual, harmonic frequencies, mood-adjusting illumination, and empathic vibrations meticulously crafted to quell aggression, to open hearts. Trent remained unblinking, seated silently, arms crossed, observing the Solari elder gracefully descend from the rafters, wings shimmering. "We do not condone what the Sheathal did," the elder intoned, his voice trembling like a whisper on glass. "But your response threatens the balance of galactic unity. We must guide you toward peace." Trent offered a chilling smile. "We've been guided before," he stated. "London, remember?" The Solari elder faltered. "That was not our hand." "No," Trent said, rising slowly, "but you held the map." With a subtle nod, he activated a command beacon concealed within his jacket. 20 orbital stealth satellites, deployed months before the summit, activated, targeting the foundational pillars of the Circle of Harmony. The colossal structure didn't collapse. It simply sank into an artificially generated black hole beneath it, utilizing reverse-engineered Solari technology. Humanity had transformed their own pacifist science into a weapon. The Solari homeworld received no further contact. The message was delivered before their transmission finally ceased. Even peace can be punished. By then, the remaining unconcordant races were in full, panicked retreat. The Grathari, a species of sentient, crystalline beings who had once condescendingly judged humanity as unstable, issued a desperate galactic alert. Earth is no longer contained by diplomacy. Engage at your own extinction. Yet some still dared to resist. The Jakari reptilian warmongers dispatched fleets toward the outer rim of Earth's former colonies. Their fatal error wasn't in attacking. It was in believing we still had colonies to protect. Those colonies were elaborate traps, each outpost rigged with black hole mines, self-replicating defense AIs, and bioweapons meticulously engineered to infect only Jakari biology. It wasn't a defense. It was an ambush in every brutal sense. They lost 40,000 warships in under an hour, and we didn't lose a single human. That was the pivotal moment when fear truly took root, not just among the dwindling unconcordant members, but across the entire galaxy. The common species, those who had been exploited, enslaved, and silenced by the Council for centuries, began to rise up, not because they sought freedom, but because they understood that humans would eventually arrive, and if they didn't demonstrate resistance, they would be perceived as part of the problem. Entire planets began dispatching apologies to Earth, not offers of alliance, but desperate apologies. Messages flooded in by the thousands. We were silent. We were complicit. We were wrong. We meticulously archived every single one, never responding. Forgiveness isn't a human instinct. Survival is. There was one final race left, the oldest, most enigmatic of the unconcordant. The Vath. No one had ever seen them in person. They communicated solely through envoys, AI projections, and interpreters. They asserted their existence on a plane of thought utterly detached from war and peace. But when our dreadnoughts reached the core system, hovering in low orbit around their sacred planet, something shifted. They emerged in physical form. 10 beings, each encased in a metallic exosuit, radiating an energy even our most brilliant scientists couldn't identify. They didn't plead. They didn't attack. They simply stood on the ruins of their temple and spoke in chilling unison. We underestimated the human soul. Admiral Trent gazed down from the flagship above. He opened the comms. "You didn't underestimate us," he stated. "You never saw us at all." Then he gave the order. The entire planet was swallowed by an artificial gravitational collapse, forming a nascent black star. No survivors. no monuments, no chance to rebuild. Just memory. Back on Earth. A profound silence reigned, not because we were satisfied, but because we were done. The galaxy lay in ruin, not utterly scorched, but profoundly humbled, shattered in a way only betrayed trust can accomplish. We didn't demand worship, we didn't colonize. We simply left them all to their shattered existences. We returned home. Earth had transformed in our absence. Cities were rebuilt, but simpler, less cacophonous, less chaotic. No politicians, just self-organizing communities. Defense grids still orbited our skies, but the people below lived quietly, not peacefully, but knowingly, because we all comprehended one fundamental truth: in a universe governed by falsehoods, manipulation, and arrogance, humanity did what no one anticipated. We chose vengeance over obedience, rage over acceptance, and in doing so, we compelled the stars to remember our name. They wouldn't forget again. The galaxy fell quiet, but Earth was not at peace. Victory never feels clean. It doesn't adorn itself in banners or distribute medals. It stains the hands of those who earned it and leaves a silence too heavy for any celebration. Trent understood this better than most. He walked alone through what had once been downtown Chicago, now rebuilt cleaner, more efficient. The skyscrapers were lower, more practical, less a monument to capitalism, and more a testament to survival. Autonomous drones hummed overhead. Trees now thrived where highways had once choked the earth. Children laughed somewhere nearby, kicking a ball against a steel wall spray-painted with faded words, "Never again." His boots crunched on gravel as he passed the Memorial Square. Names, thousands of them, not alphabetically, not categorized, just names etched in stone, stacked like bricks in a wall that seemed too endless to comprehend. He placed his hand against one name, a tender gesture, unnoticed by anyone. Dad. He hadn't cried when the war began, not when London vanished, not when half the planet screamed through fire and ash, but here, with the silence pressing down and his own reflection looking hollow in the polished granite, it felt different. We won, but it didn't bring them back. The High Command wanted him to remain visible, to grant interviews, lead councils, perhaps even establish Earth's first diplomatic body for post-war interaction. He refused. Diplomacy was a language he had never trusted. It had failed Earth once before. Instead, he spent his days walking, listening, observing. The people were healing, but something deep within them had shifted. Even the children possessed it, this quiet intensity in their eyes. They knew the stories. They knew what Earth had done. There were no cartoon heroes, no fairy tales, just unvarnished facts. We were attacked, we retaliated, we dismantled empires. Now we wait. Because we knew it wasn't over. There are always survivors. Always those who claw their way from beneath the rubble with fire in their lungs and hatred in their veins. Somewhere in the far, dark reaches of the galaxy, seeds of revenge had already been sown, and Earth had to be ready. That's why the Citadel was constructed, a clandestine installation deep beneath Europa's icy crust. Not a weapon, but a vault. Within its depths resided everything: tactical data from every engagement, recovered alien technologies, psychological profiles of every unconcordant leader, even cultural archives from the species we had crushed. It was now Earth's formidable brain, and at its core stood Project Obsidian. Trent visited it once. He hadn't intended to. He was en route to a lunar inspection when his ship's navigation inexplicably rerouted him mid-flight. A security override from the Council. He was the sole individual permitted entry now. The Citadel lacked conventional doors. It possessed sensors that meticulously scanned your memories. The deeper your trauma, the deeper it allowed you to penetrate. He walked alone through corridors that pulsed like veins. Lights dimmed with his every breath. Eye monitors silently blinked, observing, evaluating his every step. Deeper felt like a descent into his own mind. Then, the vault opened. Obsidian was not a weapon in the traditional sense. It was a child, a clone neither human nor alien, but something in between. They had utilized recovered Jethal DNA, fused with human stem cells, and enhanced with neural harmonics. It possessed eyes as black as oil, wide with an unsettling curiosity, and a voice that perfectly mimicked any tone it heard. It sat in the center of the chamber, humming softly to itself. When Trent approached, it tilted its head. "You came," it said, in a flawless imitation of his father's voice. Trent didn't flinch. "Don't do that," Obsidian smiled. "Why? Are you afraid of the past?" "Because I buried it. You turned it into me." That was the unspoken truth. Obsidian was Earth's ultimate fail-safe, not for defense, but for understanding. It had access to every mind uploaded from enemy corpses, every intercepted memory, every psychological record. It understood the enemy better than they understood themselves, and it was evolving faster than anything Earth had ever witnessed. Trent watched it for a moment, then posed a question that had gnawed at him for months. "Is it over?" Obsidian's smile faded. "No." The lights dimmed further. "There's something coming," it whispered. Something they were all afraid of. Even before they came to Earth, the Unconcordant wasn't a peace project. It was a shield. A shield from what? Obsidian looked up, its eyes distant. They called it the holopath. A species? A force? Or maybe an idea? I don't know. But the unconcordant formed not to guide the galaxy, but to prepare it. Prepare for what? For a harvest. The word chilled the air. Obsidian stood, its bones softly cracking as it stretched. It moved like a child, curious and unburdened, yet its presence filled the chamber with something ancient. They didn't attack Earth because we were dangerous, it stated. They attacked because they were scared. We'd wake it up. Trent stepped back. You're saying Earth was a trigger? No, Obsidian said, smiling again. I'm saying you were the bait. Trent stood frozen, staring at the thing shaped like a child yet older than anything he'd ever known. The bait, he repeated. Obsidian nodded slowly. You weren't chosen. You were placed. Cultivated. Trent's mind swirled with images, nuclear mushroom clouds, burning cities, collapsing unconcordant homeworlds. Every act of vengeance now twisted by that single, chilling suggestion. We weren't reacting, we were being used. He leaned forward, his voice quiet. By who? Obsidian turned its head sideways. That's the wrong question. You should be asking for what purpose. Silence. The AI systems in the chamber buzzed softly, like a hidden swarm of bees behind steel. Trent felt a pressure in his chest, as if the room itself was watching, listening, weighing his thoughts. What the hell is the hollow path? Obsidian closed its eyes for a long moment. It didn't answer. Then, without opening them, it began to speak, not in its voice, not in Trent's father's, but in a tone no human should have recognized. A chorus of thousands speaking through a single throat. We are the silence between stars. We do not build. We do not rule. We unmake. The voice wasn't Obsidian's anymore. Trent reached for the emergency override on his wrist, but the panel blinked red. Command blocked. Obsidian opened its eyes. They weren't black anymore. They were voids, like holes punched through reality. The unconcordant knew. It said in its normal tone now. They didn't fear you. They feared what would come after you. Woke, Trent hissed, stepping back. You Obsidian pointed a pale finger. You are the catalyst. Your rage, your vengeance. It echoes. Trent clenched his jaw. You're speaking in riddles. Because that's all I have, Obsidian whispered. The holopath isn't a fleet. It isn't an empire. It's hunger, older than stars. It consumes civilizations the moment they become self-aware of their own cruelty. That made Trent pause. We've always been cruel. Not like this. You burned an entire galactic government to ash. You turned pain into a religion. The galaxy watched, and now so does it. Trent shook his head, trying to focus. Why would anyone bait something like that? To survive it? Maybe. To direct it toward someone else? Or maybe just out of desperation. The unconcordant was breaking long before they came to Earth. They needed a scapegoat, a distraction, something bright and loud enough to draw the Hollow's eye away from them. And they picked us. Obsidian didn't answer. It didn't have to. Trent stepped away, his hand trembling slightly. He didn't like what this meant. Earth hadn't just ended tyrants. It had announced itself with blood. And now, something older, something unseen, was listening. Do we fight it? He asked, quieter now. Obsidian tilted its head. Do you fight a virus? A storm? A concept? Trent's mouth went dry. Can we hide? You've already screamed. For the first time in years, Admiral Trent felt genuine fear. Not for Earth, but for everything. He left the Citadel without a word. Outside, Europa's frozen plains stretched for miles. His ship was waiting, but his mind was already 1,000 light-years away. If this thing was coming, and if the unconcordant had spent millennia just avoiding it, then what chance did humanity have? Back on Earth, things were changing again. The sky above the Pacific rippled one morning, like heat distortion. Satellites caught the anomaly, but readings came back scrambled. Radiation levels dropped, gravity flux increased. No energy signature anyone could explain. People thought it was another attack. It wasn't. The anomaly hovered perfectly still, for 37 hours, then it vanished. No sound, no shockwave, just gone. But every infant born in that window, their eyes were black. No one could explain it. Genetic scans showed nothing wrong. No abnormalities, no defects. But the eyes, they weren't blind. They were empty. Trent stood before the global assembly. 2 days later, it had been 3 years since he last addressed them. His voice was quieter now, but the weight behind it was iron. We've done what no species has ever done, he said. We made the stars bleed. No one spoke, all eyes on him. But something's watching, and I believe we've only just awakened it. Screens behind him displayed the anomaly, then photos of the newborns, then satellite shots of deep space, the edge of the galaxy, where something moved but couldn't be measured. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Trent said. We did what we had to, but now we need to do something harder. He paused, then uttered it. We need to prepare to be prey. The room erupted. Some denied, others panicked, but no one disagreed. And just like that, humanity shifted again. Not into conquerors, but into survivors on borrowed time. The Citadel tripled its research funding. Obsidian was given full autonomy. Earth's defense systems were reprogrammed, not just for planetary protection, but for deep space threat detection. Trent watched it all unfold with a hollow heart. He knew what they didn't. The galaxy was full of monsters, but the one they'd just awakened it didn't need spaceships. It fed on fear, and humanity had just served it a banquet. The holopath didn't arrive with fire. It arrived with absence. One by one, stars blinked out. First it was Giza 581, then HD 40307, then 12 more within 3 galactic cycles. Number explosion, no nova, just gone. The light they had shed across the galaxy since before human evolution extinguished like candles in a storm. Astronomers on Earth went mad trying to explain it. They called it gravitational collapse, exotic matter decay, quantum shadow events, terms that meant nothing, because the silence spoke louder. Then the dreams began. Not everyone had them, only some, mostly soldiers, survivors, people who'd held weapons during the retaliation. They woke screaming, describing the same vision, a black corridor stretching endlessly into a Skyles's void, with something moving just beyond sight, watching, breathing, whispering, "You were never alone." At first, no one believed it, but then, the black-eyed children started speaking in tongues no one taught them. Some called it gibberish, others prophecy. Obsidian knew better. "It's not speaking to you," it told Trent, its body more mature now, taller, its skin less pale. "It's speaking through you. Erstwas the match. You are the fire." Trent had stopped sleeping altogether. Not out of fear. There was no room for fear in him anymore, but because every time he closed his eyes, he heard it. Not words, not language, but intention. Predators don't roar at prey. They wait. And this thing, whatever it was waiting for humanity to realize one truth. You are not the apex. Trent stood at the edge of Earth's new orbital fortress. A ring station built from Concord wreckage, circling the planet like a crown of bones. They called it the Aegis. It bristled with every weapon Earth had invented, and a few it barely understood. But Trent knew it wouldn't matter. "You can't shoot a nightmare. You've seen it, haven't you?" came a voice behind him. It was Commander Brandt, old war dog, ex-Special Ops, now head of Deep Vigilance. His face was etched with too many regrets and not enough victories. "I felt it," Trent said. "It doesn't have a shape. It's like a hunger made real." Brandt stepped beside him. "Obsidian says it's coming." Trent nodded. "Obsidian says it's already here, just not in the way we understand." The stars outside the viewport twinkled like they always had, but some were missing now, and the empty spaces between them felt closer. "We spent all our fury on the unconcordant," Brandt said. "What do we have left?" Trent answered without turning. "Understanding," Brandt scoffed. "That's not a weapon." Trent finally looked at him. "It is if it changes how we survive." The Earth of now wasn't the same Earth that had burned cities in vengeance. The rage was still there, but beneath it was something deeper, an ancient instinct. No technology could replace, adapt, or die. The Hollow wasn't a military force. It didn't need ships or soldiers. It corrupted ecosystems, erased gravity, bent memory, and time. It unmade Innos testing Earth, all across the solar system. Anomalies were increasing, Saturn's rings distorted, forming geometrical patterns that no natural force could create. Mars had begun shifting its axis. Probes sent to deep space stopped sending data, not because they were destroyed, but because they forgot how to transmit. That's when Project Monad was greenlit, a consciousness integration program. The goal wasn't to build a bigger gun. It was to merge human minds, linked by neural lattice, guided by Obsidian's hybrid intelligence. If the holopath wasn't something you could fight externally, then Earth would fight internally, becoming something else, something harder to consume. Trent was the first volunteer. The procedure was non-invasive, at least that's what the scientists claimed. But when the neural bridge connected, when his thoughts touched 100 other soldiers, engineers, children, even a priest, he understood what it really was. It was unity, not agreement, not peace, but awareness. Everyone's grief, everyone's hate, everyone's hope, all swirling in one shared stream. And in that moment, something noticed. The corridor appeared again, the endless black hallway. Only now Trent wasn't alone. They all saw it together, every connected mind. And at the far end, a shape, no form, just movement, shifting, watching. Then the voice came, not in speech, but in feeling. "You grew teeth. You remember pain." Good. The minds recoiled, but Trent didn't. He leaned in. "What are you? The end of arrogance, the price of violence." "The answer to your question?" Trent grit his teeth. "Why Earth? Why now?" "Because you are me, in flesh." Then it was gone. Trent disconnected, falling to his knees, nose bleeding. Around him, others screamed or fell unconscious. Only Obsidian remained standing. "You touched it," it said, eyes wide. Trent stood shakily. "It touched us." And that's when Earth changed again. Not in technology, not in politics, but in nature. Plants began blooming in patterns, geometrical spirals previously unknown. Animals grew more intelligent. Birds flew in binary code. Volcanoes erupted without heat. Weather systems stopped obeying gravity. The Earth itself was responding. Obsidian called it sympathetic resonance. The planet had felt the Hollow's presence, and it was adapting. For the first time in known history, Earth wasn't just a world. It was a will, a living reaction to an existential threat. The forests, the oceans, the aerial shifting, listening, preparing. Obsidian explained it simply. The holopath does not consume matter, it consumes meaning. If Earth remembers who it is, if it binds its pain and memory into something coherent, it might survive. Trent understood then. The war wasn't over weapons, it was over identity. And Earth was the last voice shouting, I exist. Into the void. The day the oceans changed color, the world held its breath. It started in the Mariana Trench. Divers reported an unnatural hum, low, continuous, like a distant heartbeat. Then, within 72 hours, the Pacific turned from blue to a deep, obsidian black. Not pollution, not algae, bloom, it was something deeper. The water itself was changing, thickening, almost sentient in the way it moved. Satellite scans confirmed it. Oceans across the globe had become denser, richer in unknown compounds. And it wasn't random. The patterns formed spirals, glyphs, symbols, identical to those carved into the ruins of Concord temples humanity had raised years ago. Obsidian stood atop the cliffs of what used to be Los Angeles, now called Meridian Zero, watching the coastline ripple as waves formed letters in no known language. It's trying to speak, it whispered. Trent stood beside it, older now, paler. Every contact with the holopath took something from him. Time, memory, warmth, but he didn't flinch anymore. He didn't ask why, he just watched Earth. He asked. Obsidian didn't answer for a long time. Then finally, no, United States. Through Earth. Trent let that settle. Earth was adapting, yes, but it wasn't passive. It was channeling something through the people who had shaped it with blood, loss, and rage. The holopath fed on identity, on the meaning of civilizations, but humans had always thrived in trauma. Our history was forged in war, in pain, in betrayal, and now all of that was weaponizing. Across the world, monuments that once stood as symbols of pride were being dismantled. In their place rose obsidian towers, black spires infused with resonance cores designed by the shared minds of Monad. These weren't structures, they were statements, messages sent through space, echoing one truth: we will not be unmade quietly. In the shadows of those towers, people changed. Children born with black eyes began speaking in riddles that later translated to mathematical proofs. Grown men wept for no reason, claiming to remember lives they never lived. Dreams merged, memories fused. Some called it madness, but Obsidian called it preparation. The holopath will not come as an invasion, it said. It will come as a question, one only the dead can answer. Trent had spent decades fighting wars, but this wasn't a battle. It was a reckoning. That's when the sky cracked. No warning, no signal, just a line thin white silent cut across the stars like a wound. It didn't glow, it pulled. Every satellite went dark. The moon trembled. Gravity shifted slightly across continents. Birds fell from the sky, and from the tear, something emerged. Not a ship, not a being, but a presence. It covered half the sky above Earth, a darkness deeper than space, stretching without end, yet, somehow shaped. You couldn't see it unless you looked at what wasn't there. Cities below flickered, people fell to their knees, dreams turned into visions. Reality bent ever so slightly. And then came the voice, not from the sky, but from within. Every living thing heard it: plants, animals, AI, humans, simultaneously. I have arrived. The holopath had not just found Earth, it had entered it. Trent collapsed, clutching his head. He wasn't alone. Millions screamed in the same moment. Obsidian too fell, but its eyes glowed brighter than ever before. They're here to judge, it gasped. Trent rose unsteady. Then let them judge. The Aegis orbital ring powered up immediately. Defense networks activated across every hemisphere. Earth's military no longer used soldiers. It used Gestalt's consciousness fuse strike. Minds able to process threat data faster than light. The Monad system lit up with over 10,000 synchronized minds, but no weapons fired. There was nothing to shoot, because the holopath wasn't physical. It was the question, and it asked, who are you? The question hit Trent like a freight train. His mind filled with images. His childhood, the ruins of Chicago, his father's grave, the burning of Shethel Prime, the screams of dying aliens, the eyes of children who hadn't even been born yet. Who are you? He couldn't answer, not with words, but Earth could. The resonance towers activated. The oceans vibrated. The black-eyed children sang, and the world remembered. Every war, every betrayal, every death, every act of defiance, every moment of tenderness hidden between acts of savagery. It all poured into the sky, not as excuses, but as truth. This is who we are. We hurt, we rage, we fall, but we remember. And in that remembrance, we endure. The hollow paused for the first time since the stars began to vanish. The thing behind the curtain hesitated, because Earth was not begging, it wasn't bargaining, it was defying. Obsidian rose to its feet, blood leaking from its ears. You showed them? Trent didn't speak. He couldn't. He simply looked to the sky and let the pain fill him, because pain was the only language the holopath respected. For now, it lingered, and Earth stood damaged, bruised, changed, but whole. It wasn't over, but for the first time. The holopath knew something terrifying. Humanity would not go quietly. It didn't leave. The holopath lingered above Earth like a question no one could answer. No weapons fired. No declarations followed. Just presence of pressure behind the eyes. A hum in the teeth. A crawling sensation under the skin that never went away. People began to whisper less. Dream less. Not out of fear, but exhaustion. Even the bravest were weary of surviving. Trent walked through a town that hadn't existed 5 years ago. It had no name, just coordinates. There were no buildings, just domes of obsidian and glass grown from Earth's altered soil. Children with ink-black eyes ran past him, laughing in a language no one had taught them. Their parents watched with tired smiles, drinking bitter water that now flowed from underground. Springs laced with trace energy no scientist could classify. This was life now, post-war, post-revenge. Commander Brandt stood by a withered tree, arms folded, scarred face unreadable. "They're not scared," he said, nodding at the children. "They should be." Trent watched the kids roll a stone across dirt carved with spiral glyphs. "They're not scared," he murmured, "because they don't remember a world before this." Brandt spat. "Maybe forgetting is a luxury." Trent didn't answer. He didn't need to. He was carrying more memory than anyone alive. Every act of retaliation, every cry, every decision that turned Earth from a world into a warning. And now the Hollow was here, not to destroy them, but to know them. That was the conclusion. Obsidian came 2 weeks after the presence appeared. "It isn't here to kill," it explained. "It's here to understand." Trent raised an eyebrow. "And if it doesn't like what it understands?" Obsidian had just looked at him, quiet. "Then it will erase the understanding." Obliteration not just of body, but of concept, of memory, of meaning. Earth's entire existence could be undone, as if it had never happened, and there was no weapon against that. The planet responded in ways even Obsidian hadn't predicted. Across the world, strange harmonics began humming from mountains, deserts, the ocean floor. These weren't mechanical signals. They were geological responses. The Earth was speaking back. The idea terrified scientists that the planet, long thought passive, dumb matter, had developed will, personality, voice, and maybe a memory of its own. Trent stood in a cavern beneath what used to be Norway. A resonance node had formed there, one of the largest. It pulsed in time with his heartbeat. Even though he hadn't told anyone, the stone glowed slightly, like it recognized him. Obsidian watched, intrigued. "It likes you." Trent frowned. "It doesn't know me." Obsidian shook its head. "It remembers what you've done, and it knows it needs a face. A face. A speaker," Obsidian said quietly. "A sacrifice." Trent didn't ask what it meant. He already knew. That night, the holopath spoke again. It wasn't a voice. It was a choice. Across the world, dreams unified into one collective vision. Black stairs spiraling downward, made of ash and bone. At the bottom, a single door. Behind it, silence. But someone had to open it, a gesture of trust or surrender, or both. Obsidian confirmed it the next morning. "This is it," it said. "The Hollow wants to be known, and it wants one of us to choose to know it." Brandt threw a chair across the command deck when he heard its bait. Psychological warfare, not diplomacy. Trent didn't argue. He just nodded. "I'll go." Everyone objected, council members, scientists, Brandt, even Obsidian, but no one stopped him, because they all knew. Trent wasn't a man anymore. He was the face Earth had shown to the stars. If anyone deserved to walk into the unknown, was the one who had carved the galaxy open with grief and steel. Preparations took a single day. There was nothing to pack, no armor, no weapons, just a single shuttle, handcrafted, lined with organic circuits from Obsidian's own design, and imprinted with Trent's memories through monad integration. At launch, no one spoke. No speeches, no flags. Trent boarded the vessel alone. The black sky loomed ahead, split down the center like a cracked eye. He entered the wound. Inside was not space, it was absence. The stars disappeared. Time bled sideways. Light had no source. Up, down, left, right, none of it meant anything. Yet the ship moved, or maybe he moved. It was hard to tell. Then the stairs appeared, not literal, but real somehow. They spiraled in on themselves endlessly, made of every broken thought Trent had ever had. He walked. Every step echoed with memory. The first time he held a weapon, the burning of primed the silence in his father's eyes after London died. The cries of children from every city he couldn't save. The hatred, the justice, the confusion. The stairs narrowed, and then the door. Not large, not ornate, just there. Trent stood before it, breathing hard. Then he opened it. What lay beyond wasn't a room. It was a mind, not his, not Earth's. The holopath itself. He saw it all. Civilizations so old they wept molten tears. Stars born not from fusion but from grief. Beings who lived in the folds of time, watching reality pulse like a dying vein. Entire races who had once screamed their identity into the void only to be forgotten, unmade. He saw Earth small, furious, loud, violent, beautiful. The Hollow watched him. "You remember pain?" Why? Trent didn't speak with words. He showed it. A boy burying his sister after a drone strike. A woman sacrificing herself for a child she didn't know. A soldier holding his enemy's hand as they both bled out. A world that refused to forget its wounds. The hollow tasted those memories, and it recoiled, then leaned in. You are not pure. Trent showed his face. Aged, hardened, hollowed. No, he said. We're human. The hollow was silent. Then impossibly, it bowed. Then you may remain. In the skies over Earth, the wound began to seal. The pressure lifted. The stars returned. Obsidian, watching from the control room, wept without understanding why. And far away, in the absence beyond stars, Trent stood alone. Not broken, but known. He stood in nothingness. No sky, no ground, no sound. Just memory and pressure. Just the presence. Trent didn't know how long he had been inside the mind of the holopath. Time didn't work here. Minutes felt like lifetimes. Or maybe they were. Lifetimes. The entity didn't speak again. Not with words. It watched. And Trent did the same. He saw the ghost echoes of other civilizations. Their final messages, their last screams, their proud declarations that vanished into this void like mist. All of them had been proud. All had claimed righteousness. All had begged. None remained. But Earth had not begged. Earth had remembered. It had answered the question, not with peace or submission, but with identity flawed, brutal, loud, and honest. The holopath understood now. It wasn't that humans were stronger. It was that they felt more deeply. Pain wasn't just trauma. To us, it was foundation. We build from it, we carry it, we use it. No species had ever screamed into the void like we did, and meant it. That made us different. That made us dangerous. And so the holopath had chosen not to erase us, but to mark us. A single word etched into the silence around Trent: witness. That's what he had become. Not a conqueror, not a general, not even a survivor. A witness to something older than time. And now an anchor for Earth's place in the galaxy. When Trent opened his eyes, he was standing on Earth again. Or something like it. The sky was the same. The air smelled like salt and iron. The wind whispered in languages he didn't understand but somehow remembered. He stood on a cliff overlooking a sea of black water. Below, people moved. Not many, just a few hundred. All of them looked up when he appeared. None of them spoke, but every single one of them had his eyes. Obsidian stood at the base of the hill. It hadn't aged, but it had changed. Its skin had grown darker, pulsing with faint blue light. Its hair was longer, its face more human than ever, but the eyes were still bottomless. You returned? It said quietly. Trent nodded. I think it let me. Obsidian nodded in return. We're changed. Trent looked at the people below. They know. Yes. Why aren't they afraid? Because they understand. Trent sat on a stone. The earth was warm beneath him, humming with subtle vibration. How long? Obsidian tilted its head. 7 years. Trent blinked. Felt like minutes. Obsidian didn't respond. The world had moved on. Not in the way it had after the had been rebuilding. But this was transformation. The cities were mostly gone, not abandoned, evolved. People lived closer now, not in tribes or villages, but in networks. Not digital, but conscious. Earth's monad system had grown. No longer just a military technology. It was culture now. Memory sharing, emotion threading, collective intuition. Every child born connected to it from birth. Pain was no longer private, nor was joy, or rage. And because of that, violence had changed. It still existed, but not like before. There was no need to dominate, no need to impose will. Because when one human hurt another, they felt it too. Trent walked through the settlement. No one bowed, no one saluted, but everyone watched. Respect didn't look like reverence anymore. It looked like recognition. You saw it, a child said, no older than 10, walking beside him. The thing that watches, Trent nodded slowly. I did. Is it gone? No, Trent said softly, but it sees us now, and it understands. The child smiled, a deep, knowing smile, too old for his face. Then it's not our enemy anymore. No, Trent said, his voice rough. But it's not our friend either. That night he sat beneath a sky of unbroken stars. No scars, no distortions, just clarity. Obsidian joined him, sitting cross-legged. Do you regret it? It asked. Trent thought for a long time. Not the war, he said. Not the fire. Not even the revenge. He looked up. I regret that it had to mean so much before anyone listened. Obsidian nodded. The galaxy has changed. Yes, Trent agreed. But not because we were right, because we refused to be erased. That silence hung between them. Not heavy, just true. The next day Trent walked to the ocean. Black waves lapped at silver sand. The water still pulsed in patterns. Glyphs that sang when the wind blew just right. He stepped into the surf, not to vanish, not to die, but to connect. Because Earth was still listening. The holopath still watched, and now humanity had found a way to speak back. Not with guns, not with screams, but with memory carved into the skin of the world. Etched in the voice of every survivor, and kept alive by a single truth. We are not what you wanted us to be, we are worse. We remembered that there was no monument to Admiral Trent, no statue, no shrine, not even a tomb. By the time he passed, silently, alone. Seated beneath the glyph trees near the Black Ocean, humanity had already moved beyond the need for heroes. They didn't bury him, they remembered him, and in this new Earth, memory was eternal. The concept of death had changed after the holopath. When the sky cracked and understanding replaced survival, the idea of finality disappeared. Human minds, now partially entwined through the expanded monad lattice, were archived upon death, not in cold servers, but in resonant stone. Graves became listening chambers. You didn't weep for the dead. You spoke to them, and sometimes they answered. So when Trent died, they carried his body, not to a field, not to a monument, but to the first rift, the spot where the sky had split and the hollow path had spoken. They placed his body in the stone basin, covered it in black leaves, and left it for the earth to consume. It did not rot. It absorbed. Within a week, the stone hummed with a new note, a low, steady frequency that, when felt against the skin, carried emotion, resolve, grief, pride. That was how people spoke to him now, not in words, but by pressing their palm against the stone, letting it read them, letting it remind them. The children called it the first witness. Centuries passed. Humanity didn't conquer the stars. It didn't need to. It became something else. Worlds were not colonized, but connected. Other civilizations, those that survived the holopath's era of reckoning, came to Earth not in fear or shame, but curiosity. They brought languages, histories, species with minds that dreamed in color and breathed philosophy, but none of them forgot who had screamed first, who had refused to be erased. Earth became sacred, not perfect, not wholly foundational. The Black Towers still stood, grown now into living organisms. They hummed and shimmered, powered not by fuel or solar energy, but memory. Each tower resonated with a specific thread of human truth, love, sacrifice, rage, loss, each connected to a city, now more consciousness than concrete. Earth was no longer divided by borders. It was divided by emotion. You didn't travel to New York or Istanbul. You traveled to sorrow, or defiance, or hope. And each place remembered not what had happened there, but how it had felt. That was Earth's greatest evolution. We stopped recording facts. We recorded feelings. The holopath never returned in form, but it never needed to. Its presence lingered in every thought, every decision, every whisper in the wind when the stars were quiet. And when other species asked, "What saved you?" humans answered simply, "We told the truth." We didn't plead innocence. We didn't beg mercy. We showed ourselves ugly, vengeful. Rand the universe blinked first. Obsidian remained, outlived all of them. Not by design, but by choice. It became the keeper of memory, the last hybrid, not human, not hollow, something in between. Children came to it with questions no book could answer. Why did we burn the stars? Why didn't we ask for peace? Why did we choose pain? And Obsidian would answer, because silence was worse. Eventually, Obsidian built the last tower. It was, unlike the others, smaller, darker, isolated at the edge of the world where no light touched. It called it the Archive of Regret. Inside, it stored every mistake, every decision that cost more than it should have, every voice that went unheard, every apology that came too late. It wasn't a punishment. It was a reminder, because humans didn't erase history anymore. Felt it. One last time, Obsidian walked to the first rift. The stone still hummed with Trent's memory, fainter now, softer, but still there. It placed a hand against it. "I kept them," Obsidian whispered. "I showed them how to carry what you gave." The wind shifted, and from the stone came a frequency. 3 pulses, 1 long, 2 short. In ancient code, it meant "I see you." Obsidian smiled, not for itself, but for him. The stars above did not burn brighter that night. They didn't need to, because the galaxy knew one thing, permanently engraved into the foundation of its memory. Humanity did not survive because it was strong. It survived because it refused to be forgotten, even by the void itself. Hey everyone, if this journey through humanity's resilience resonated with you, please hit that like button and leave a comment below sharing your thoughts. And if you want to explore more stories that challenge our understanding of the universe, don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell. It really helps the channel grow and lets us keep bringing you content like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.